Yo people, welcome back to the YouTube channel. You already know what time it is. It's time for another video. Player ratings, Arthur analysis, tactico-tease, whatever you want to call it. We have arrived on a very somber Sunday. Now, I must say, I'm still not over it. I was a little bit worse for wear feeding the ducks, skipping the rocks. Yesterday evening, I was cursing and cussing and swearing more than I've ever done on a watch along, and I apologize for that. It's meant to be sporadically, it's not meant to be constant. But I have been pushed to the edge in that fixture, but it is what it is. Third defeat in a row. We have to dissect it, break it down, and understand it, because it's not a fluke. It's not a coincidence that we've lost 3 times in a row at home to them. It's not a coincidence that we've won, I think, 1 home game in the last 13, is it? These are not coincidences. These are facts. These are consistent outcomes. And we need to talk about why. Now, first of all, we knew the premise coming into the game. We knew that Brentford were going to have a 3-5-2 or 5-3-2 setup. It's what they do away from home. It's what they do against top teams or teams that they believe that they will be going up against with less possession and less opportunity to dominate. Not that we're a top team right now, unfortunately, but that's what they did. Low block, sacrifice possession. We had 61% on average this season in possession. In this game, 69%. So they were happy to go long. They were happy to build from the front two in Mbeumo and Vissa. They were happy to go for the knockdowns. They were happy to go for the long throws, the corners, the wide free kicks, the set pieces that we spoke about in the match build-up. We knew exactly what Brentford were going to bring to the table. Physicality, speed in behind, transition. And unfortunately, we failed to deal with it. And it was the most scripted, most scripted outcome you could possibly, witness in that fixture in terms of the result, the way we conceded the goals, and what we struggle up against, which is low blocks. And it's something that's been consistent for years. And to be honest, the manager has to take responsibility, but also the players. I think in the first 25 minutes, the players failed to take their chances. They failed to capitalize on the opportunities created by a certain Cole Palmer. But then what was the rest of the 75 minutes? Why were we so arse? Why were we failing to create? It's not like we absolutely bombarded on their goal for the constant full 90 minutes and then we were just poor at finishing. We lost all of our creativity. We lost all of our chance creation. What little chance creation we had. One person, Cole Palmer. The rest of the team, non-existent in terms of that. And yeah, tough times. I think it's best to start with the lineup. Where was the balance, Pochettino? You have to take the responsibility. Now, of course, let's be honest, that team on the bench, there was no depth, a lot of injuries, not many options. We'll talk about the substitutions and the timing. But in terms of the team, it just wasn't balanced. Now, for me, when you're at home, you're going to dominate possession and it's a low block. Your wingers need support. They need either the fullbacks to overlap or underlap, or they need attacking midfielders to stretch the pitch and pull out wide if they invert. I'm going to get into this. Jackson up front, to start with, is a striker that likes to occupy the half spaces. He likes to drop deep, link up, connect. He did that with Palmer numerous times. He is not a penalty box striker. If you look at his touch map, it's very sporadic, it's very erratic, it's very spread out. It's not concentrated in that penalty box. What does that mean? Well, that means he's a false 9, right? Maybe potentially in that position at this point. He's a supplier. He wants to potentially create for others in his dribble. He always does well with his dribbling statistics, 2 out of 2 in this game. Link up, like I said, he's more than happy to pass the burden over of goal scoring to others. He's not a head down, I must score today type player at the moment. Now, what does that mean? That means you need goal scoring wingers either side, cutting in on their stronger foot and putting the ball in the back of the net. Very Liverpool-esque, Mane and Salah. In this game, we went with Sterling and Madueke. Madueke is not a goal scoring winger. What we saw with the shot, it's a nicely placed shot going into the top corner. There's some potential there in the match for him to potentially net. Sterling, we know, is not clinical, but he's capable of scoring goals. But how can these goal-scoring wingers score if they're going to be hugging the touchline constantly? And then when they do come inside, They have nobody diverting the attention of the fullback they're going up against. And sometimes, and mainly in this game, most times they were double teamed, double tagged, like Eden Hazard, prime Eden Hazard, prime Gareth Bale, prime Andros Townsend. If you remember the form that he went on with Tottenham for a few months and then he got double teamed. It was Ander Herrera, FC. You know, they were just man marking these two wingers in Madueke and Sterling. They didn't have great games. But how can we be surprised that they didn't have great games when they had no support from the fullbacks? And this is where we go back to the base of the team. We played a flat back four. In the build-up, because I didn't get to put the preview out, in the build-up, the dilemma was this. We need to play 3 centre-backs, most likely because we need to contest aerially. So I understand that. Now, what we've tend to do this season is to play Levi Cole at left-back, and then we play Gusto at right-back. At Fulham, we played a flat back four, Cucurella at right back, Colwell at left back, Disasi and Silva in the centre back positions. That's a flat four with no attacking impetus really overlapping or underlapping wise from the two fullbacks because they're very defensive minded. Now for me, we got away with it because, you know, we were playing in transition, in counter. We didn't need so many bodies to commit forward because we weren't coming up against a low block. When you play low blocks, which we have not played many times this season, you need more bodies forward to combine to connect. So we suffered in this game with the flat four. Cucurella did advance on his heat map a lot more than Disasi, of course, but going forward, Cucurella is of no real use in comparison to his defensive statistics. They were really good in this match. But going forward, he 0 out of 3 crosses, 0 out of 0 attempted crosses for Disasi. We weren't utilising the wide areas, and that was making the wingers suffer even more 1v1 because they have no decoy, nobody making a run as an option, even if you're not going to use it, just to throw a defender off, just to allow you to have a little bit more space to maneuver. So it makes their job even more difficult. That's Pochettino. You have to take responsibility. Like I said, I understand playing 3 centre-backs because of the aerial threat, because of the fact that Brentford for crosses, accurate crosses in the Premier League this season are second, because we know the aerial threat and whoop-de-doo, the goal comes from a cross and a header at the back post, which Disasi should do better, especially with his height. You're in the team to do that. It was poor. I'll mark him consequently in the player ratings accordingly. But you know that you're going to need 3 centre-backs potentially because of this threat. But that means at least one of the fullbacks, Gusto or Maatsen, but, you know, he doesn't play Maatsen at left-back, need to be contributing to the attack to balance it out, to give you someone to go forward on those fullback positions. The second thing I didn't understand, so that's the first thing, no support for the wingers. The second thing I didn't understand from Pochettino is Gallagher's heat map and his position was off the left side of the pivot, not the right side. Now, when we've played Fulham or when we've played, you know, other teams, we had Bournemouth who had a high line, Villa, high line. You know, we played plenty of teams this season, most teams that didn't really defend deep, only really Nottingham Forest. We lost 1-0, we didn't score. West Ham defended quite deep for a lot of that game, countered, hit us on the break with Antonio in the channels. We lost that game as well. We also don't win sometimes when we play high lines, but we do create more clear-cut opportunities because it's easier to do so. Villa, Bournemouth, Burnley, Luton are just shit. But, you know, you get my point. When the space is there, Arsenal, Liverpool, we create chances a lot easier freely because there's more space to run into. But when it comes down to the Gallagher position, I didn't understand. Why was he playing on the left side? The heat map is crazy. Gallagher, at times, and at Fulham in particular, was used as a wide midfielder who, in a 3, didn't have to play in a pivot, but sometimes would break forward and contribute in terms of giving a outlet and a bit of width to the team as Palmer would come inside. And in this case, Madueke. Why was Gallagher, with Disasi at right back, why was Gallagher not used as a overlapping kind of right-sided 8 who could bring width and, you know, make those decoy runs? He's a decent crosser. I've said it before. I just didn't understand that. I didn't get it from Poch. That didn't make sense to me. He played on the left side. He's not going to overlap Sterling on the wide area because he's on his left foot. He's not going to cross with his left foot, so he's not going to be able to bring width on that side. He's not going to be able to compensate for the lack of, you know, width. And then even more so, it makes less sense because Cucurella was actually getting further forward than Disasi. So he was overlapping Sterling. He was trying to get crosses in. He was trying to give support, but he just wasn't very good at it. So you even more makes more sense to give Gallagher the right side so he could bring the same thing Cucurella is bringing on the right, because Disasi wasn't going forward. I just didn't understand that. It was imbalanced. So I know Enzo wasn't playing. People yesterday in the review, they think that I was being serious. No, I wasn't. Enjoy time with your family, the birth of your baby. But I have checked your XK and XK means expected kids. And at 22, you've had 2. So that means your XK is quite high for the rest of your career. Bring your kid to work day is going to become a thing soon for you, sir. I'm joking. But yeah, we missed Enzo because he can bring chance creation. We've seen it against West Ham. Felix last season, little clip over the top, little low block. But to be honest, we had Palmer doing that. They didn't take their chances anyway. So that's my 2 concerns, or 3. I don't know how many concerns that is, but it's quite a few. No support for the wingers. Gallagher's position. And of course, then consequently, the fullbacks being defensive-minded, both of them. Either drop Cucurella out the team, even though he played very well defensively, his stats are very good, and play Maatsen, or play Maatsen, or play Gusto. Why was Gusto dropped? Reece James, I get it, he's not fit, but why was Gusto taken out the team? Colwell left back, Silva and Disasi centre back. I get Cucurella deserves to play on form, but you've got to have somebody going forward on the wide areas. So we didn't do that. The next thing, so we've gone through the Gallagher heat map. We've gone through the lack of support for wingers. We've not gone through the substitution or substitutions. I don't understand why it took so long for Washington to come on. Again, wasn't going to be our saviour, but why did it take so long? I don't know. You need a striker, you need a goal. You're running out of time. This kid is there. Why are we so slow with the subs? I don't know. Jackson was having a poor performance. Sterling was poor. It just wasn't going very well for us. So that's all on Poch for me. That's what I'm saying. I'm giving him his criticism. I think it's fair. And I think it needed to be said because, I saw his quotes after the game in terms of his comments, and they're not very good in terms of low blocks and coming up against that and knowing how to deal with it. He didn't back himself to get over that hurdle. He almost said, yeah, we struggle in those moments, but when we don't have them, we're fine. It's great, but most of the time we'll have low blocks, especially if we become a team that people respect again. They will start to set up more defensively. They're not at the moment because, as I've said, high lines, Villa, Bournemouth, we still didn't take our chances. We didn't win. So there's no need to set up with a low block against Chelsea because they're not necessarily going to be clinical with the high line. But if we actually were to become better and you took us to a level where we needed that respect, we would come up against even more low blocks than we are now, and you'd have to defeat those like City do constantly. So that was a worrying comment from the manager, I have to say. Hopefully he was not thinking when he said that as much as he should be. So these are all basics for me. I ain't got my badges, but I'm just saying what comes to mind in terms of how I'd expect us to try and put people in average positions. I'm not talking about positional play and De Zerbi and Pep, and I'm just saying put people in positions where they can combine and connect to go past low blocks other than just some individual brilliance from Cole Palmer. The last thing I want to mention before we go to the tactical board and the player ratings is Cucurella in the box for 2 big chances, a cutback and also a Palmer clip. Why? Is that an instruction? If that was Sterling, if that was an attacker, potentially one of those go in, it's a goal. Why was Cucurella attacking the box like Marcus Alonso? Is that the manager instructing him to do so? I have to assume because he constantly kept appearing there. Doesn't make sense to me. So, yeah. Fix that. and if you are going to have a left back going into the box to finish, Maatsen again is a better option. I know Maatsen came off the bench. He was pretty damn poor. Right wing, left back, didn't matter. He was just poor, awful cameo. But just in terms of traits, attributes, if that's going to be a theme, then at least Maatsen is probably better shooter than Cucurella. Actually, no, he is a better shooter than Cucurella. So, yeah, that's my grievances laid out as great as they can be. We're going to get to player ratings now because we've spoken about the manager. We've spoken about everything I feel like he kind of screwed up on. But the players also have to take some responsibility as always because they are the ones out there and they had the chance to kill this game inside 25 minutes. So let's talk about that. And we're going to go to the tactical board with M-A-H, Rizzio, Tactico, Arthur analysis coming. Let's go. Thanks, Matisse. So let's get into the Chelsea versus Brentford player ratings. Kick things off. I've gone with Sanchez with a 6. I think he wasn't really at fault for the first goal, and the second goal he has gone wild and rogue, and he's decided to go into the box for a corner to try and get a wild equaliser. Didn't work, obviously, most likely, not Alisson, and conceded a second as a consequence. Looked foolish tracking back and running for it, but I don't think he cost us the game. He made a big save in the first half he needed to make. Wasn't the easiest, even though it was straight at him initially. He still had to make an arm and a save to it. Distribution wasn't a problem. I'll give him a 6. Colwill, Silva, Cucurella all get 7s. I want to shed a different light on the left-back chat from earlier that was mentioned, because I think Cucurella was playing purely because, first of all, defensively, statistics-wise, looks great in this game, but also he is playing up against Mbeumo. Mbeumo is playing in this right side forward position as a part of the front two for Brentford, leading goal scorer in this team, most potent, most threatening forward and player in general. Very quick, very strong, very, very dangerous, and has scored against Chelsea previously and did in this game as well on that second. And I think he wanted his most defensively, resolute defender, in form defender, who defensively is sound and has shown that in recent games, in Cucurella, to handle that pace, because we know Colwill has been dragged into these areas against Liverpool, against West Ham, Antonio, Salah, and come off worse for wear, not the quickest along the ground in comparison to Cucurella. And I think he would have been really worrying about, say, a Colwill playing left back, and then Silva coming over to the left side centre back position, and Disasi coming over, consequently would be coming over to the other centre back position. And then you have a situation where Colwell's not the quickest along the ground against Mbeumo. Silva's also aging and not the quickest against Mbeumo. And Disasi is obviously in the 4, which allows for Gusto to start at right back. So I think that's what he was kind of toying with, and that was the problem. How do you go against this? You just play Cucurella at left back, Colwill, and one of Silva and Disasi, and you have to take the gamble airily and take that risk, which could have easily backfired, and that's why this whole problem is not easy to solve. And earlier was mentioned, just play Colwill there, but again, like I said, Mbeumo and Gusto starts at right back, and then you play the 2 centre backs and you play Cucurella left back, and then you deal with the pace situation of Mbeumo. You get Gusto overlapping on Madueke and give him an outlet and an option, but you do lose height in the team, and you do risk the set piece and the knockdowns and the long balls and the long throws and all that. So this is something I think Pochettino and his coaching staff was kind of discussing, and it was a conundrum, and in the end that's what they went with. It didn't work, but I think what we can be fair to say is that every other solution that I've just put on the table could have backfired in another way. Set pieces, if 2 centre backs are there and not the 3rd, backfire potentially. Left back situation, if it's Colwill and not Cucurella, potentially backfire, wide areas. And Gusto playing, like I said, you lose a centre back, but you get the overlap. So you're giving and taking. Moving on, Disasi gets a 5, didn't mark his man back post. Less said the better. Gallagher gets a 6.5, Caicedo gets a 7, solid in midfield. Caicedo won the ball, important interceptions and tackles for him in this game. Palmer gets an 8, key player, first 25 minutes, created ample enough chances for us to score. Key passes galore, should have scored many opportunities and didn't. I know Cucurella missed some chances, but I think that's more on Poch. I think if the instruction from Poch is to be in the box and Cucurella is falling onto his right foot, what do you expect? His job is a defender, to defend and to tackle and to intercept and to win the ball back for his team. He did that on the statistics. I'm not going to blame him for not finishing. He's not Marcus Alonso. That's more on Poch. Madueke gets a 5 and Sterling gets a 4. The reason why I give Madueke slightly more than Sterling is I think he had less support on this side with Disasi, as mentioned earlier. He's not going to overlap. That's no support. He's getting double tagged. I think Sterling got more support from Cucurella. That will show in his attempted crosses. He had 3 attempted crosses in Cucurella, 0 out of 0, no attempted crosses from Disasi. His average heat map, you will see the lopsidedness. He did not get as much support as he did. Sterling is more experienced, should be a better player, should be making an impact in this game. The expectations are higher than Madueke, and he's also been starting and playing consistently. Madueke, this was his first start, so I'm giving Sterling a worse rating because of that context. And Jackson gets a 4 as well because he was poor. Didn't threaten enough in the box, not enough touches in here, not enough. I mean, Alan Shearer put it perfectly on Match of the Day. The box movement from Jackson is not good enough. He's not making those little deft, definitive little movements that you need to get rid of 3 centre-backs on your case. And, that box movement needs to improve. If you're going to be an out-and-out striker in this league, you need to have those little margins of movement. Dropping in deep, linking up with Palmer, 1-2, give and go. Dribbles completed, 2 out of 2, little carries, all well and good out in these areas, but we need you in this. This is where that counts. We need the goal. So that's my player ratings. Hopefully explained well enough. Off the bench, NA for Washington, didn't get enough time, should have come on earlier. Matson was poor, probably give him a 4 as well. right wing, left back, poor regardless. But again, cold feet coming on, didn't get many minutes before, so what do we really expect? And Reece James not fit either. Leslie Okochoku, NA. So yeah, for me, Pochettino gets a 4 as well, or 5. You let me know in the comments what you think. But I think this was all a conundrum, and I'm trying to explain the conundrum. I think you need to, though, prioritise the fact that you're at home, you need to win the game, you need to be attack-minded, and you need to give support to your wingers, especially when you need them to invert and to cut inside for those shots that we saw from Madueke take that strike earlier on in the game. We saw Sterling, we've seen Sterling score goals. He needs to be, again, scoring and on the end of things. Because Jackson is not a striker, he is dropping into these areas in line with Palmer, and we need box presence from the wingers, like Salah and Mane, obviously B-Tech versions. And if you're going to have them inverting, cutting inside, taking shots, and being in the box when Jackson's in the box, and you have Palmer in the box, or just around the box, you have Sterling getting into the box. Not enough numbers in the box for Chelsea. You need your wingers getting into the box, potentially even Gallagher getting far forward as well. And the only way to do that is to get your fullbacks up and to push them high and wide, so you attack with 5 and potentially you defend with 5, whoever it will be. But yeah, listen, you've got your 3 centre-backs. You've got, well, if you have one fullback going forward and you have Gallagher on the other side, which was mentioned in the video, going forward as well, there's options here. And, you know, then you defend with 5, you attack with 5. You need to have something going forward in terms of numbers to commit to the box, because there's no aerial threat. So there needs to be ricochets and knockdowns and shot off the keeper and rebounds and follow-ups and all that shit. So yeah, what can I say? Gallagher could have played right side instead of Caicedo playing on the right side, and Gallagher playing left side on his heat map, which was weird considering Cucurella is already getting forward. Madueke, nothing out here. Palmer in the 10, tucking in, no width on the right, no balance. Just you're getting a 4. You're getting a 4 for the shape, I'm not gonna lie. 4 for Pochettino. Back to Matisse in the studio.
Okay, so those are your player ratings. Let me know in the comments down below what you agree with, what I've said in this video. Let me know what you think the player ratings should be if you disagree with those. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. I hope you guys enjoyed. It's not easy going through so many negatives, but I feel like this is something that, luckily, unfortunately for us, we won't come up against many more times in the near future, because we're playing against really good teams that will probably attack us again, and we'll have those transitions and we'll have those counters and we'll have those opportunities to create more chances instead of just 25 minutes and then second half capitulation. But this is a video that will just be here for when we come up against those low blocks again, when Everton, etc. come to town. And it may not be relevant right now, like I said, for the next month and a half, but it will be, and we will get back to these low blocks. So luckily, they're not coming soon, but they will be coming fast. And when they do, we must deal with it better than we did in this game. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Big up your damn selves. In a bit, people. Peace.